What's up, everybody? I am super pumped. Always super pumped. I just live a life full of joy, which is amazing. But I was somebody who I met back in my days in Seattle. We lived in the same building, and when I met him and his wife and his kids, I just knew that this was a guy that was more than just I just knew we were going to have a long friendship, and I don't have lots of long-term friendships with people I meet randomly. But Chris Moreland is an amazing person. He's been in the corporate world his whole life. But last year, he decided to take the plunge and jump into the private sector, open his own consulting company, corporate coaching company. And what's really cool about his story, which I'm not going to share, is that when you are so fearful about leaving, you don't take action. But then when you take that action, amazing things happen. And the people who sometimes you think you're going to hurt the most are actually the people that are like, dude, that's awesome. And you still keep that relationship. So Chris, I know you're sitting outside of the Mercedes dealership because you actually are starting another business as we speak, which we'll get into as well. So you went from being a corporate guy to now starting a business that's taken off to having a second business. It's probably your van right behind us.
It is.
Is it your van? That is so perfect.
Yeah, that's it.
For all of those that are listening on the podcast, he literally just bought a van, which we'll talk about in a moment. That's all about his passion. He's sitting in his car in front of the dealership to start his second business because his accountant was like, yo, you can either write a check to the government or you can invest into something you're passionate and have fun with. And worst case scenario, if you don't do well, I mean, you still have the van to have fun with. So it's like a win-win. And the van literally, just as we hit record, we were talking for like 15, 20 minutes. Literally, as I hit record, the van just drove in the background, like, which is I think it's a great sign, man. So yeah. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're about, how many 10,000 children you got, like.
Yeah. There's Vikram. First of all, thank you so much for having this platform. Thank you so much for even considering that my story might be interesting to someone else. And thank you so much for being an inspiration to so many, literally thousands of people who actually, I'm sure, follow you and listen to you for inspiration, because it is what you do.
Chris, you froze on me, bud. Chris, if you can hear me, you're frozen, bro.
All right, so Vikram, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm assuming that I'm being heard okay right now.
Yes, sir.
All right. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for creating a platform for people to be inspired and to learn from one another And thank you so much for you yourself being an inspiration to so many people, the people who are following you and getting inspired every day about what's possible that they may not necessarily be doing right now. So I love that. I love the work that you do on Instagram. I love the work that you do just in general on social media, because what it does is it inspires people. And it's part of my own personal story, because just like you, I view myself as being very ordinary, very average, and nothing really that special, period. I grew up in a little small town in Ohio called Cleveland. And the beauty of my upbringing in Cleveland is that I didn't know any better. I didn't know what else was out there in the country or the world or anything else. I didn't have a perspective on how my life was compared to those that are in different neighborhoods in Ohio or across this country or across the globe. I had no perspective whatsoever. All I knew is that when I was growing up, there was always a concern about, do we have enough money to do whatever? And I also had this incredible fetish with trying to figure out, what does success look like? Like, I don't even understand it. I want to understand, what does success look like? Because everything that I had been taught and told and showed told me that success meant acquiring a certain amount of money, so then you could have freedom. And, without that money, without that ability to make daily choices about what you did, you were not necessarily going to be that successful or happy. And you were always going to be burdened with either a job or something else going on in your life that restricted your ability to, live your best life. So my upbringing was very humble.
Yep.
Very, very humble. And it was so humble that, quite frankly, I had to work to go to high school. Like most people have to work to go to college because their parents can't afford it.
Right.
My parents were like, we want you to go to this great high school. It's fantastic. We're like, fantastic, I want to go. And then they said, but we can't afford it, so you're gonna have to work.
Crazy.
And I was like, yeah, like I don't want to work to go to high school. That's crazy. Right?
You've been paying your education since you're in high school. That's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So my parents were thoughtful enough to say, no, if you're going to be successful one day, it starts with your ability to have education, or at least your ability to be able to make choices based on your ability, based on you being informed. And the way you get informed is by education.
Right.
So with that said, I was all in. After high school, though, I knew that I was kind of sick of having to work and go to school. So I only applied to 3 places after high school. I applied to the Naval Academy, West Point, and the Air Force Academy, because I knew that those programs were the ones that were like 4-year scholarships that you didn't have to work anymore. And so I was excited. I was excited when I got accepted to West Point, but I wasn't excited about the idea of marching everywhere. And so when the Air Force sent me a note saying, hey, we'll take you, I was like, that's my ticket out of Cleveland. That's my ticket to potentially doing something where my parents will be proud of me one day. And I can personally at least work hard enough to achieve something different and something more. So that was a start.
Wow.
Of my career and my desire to do and be something different.
One of the things that I find really interesting and fascinating, because I feel like this can ruin people's lives or it can make their lives amazing, is that you said something, and for those of you that, you guys can follow Chris on LinkedIn and he'll give you his handle, but we do a lot to make our parents happy. We're all achieving at levels a lot of times, and we're also hurting ourselves in a lot of ways to try to make our parents happy. And I think a lot of us, I mean, and I've struggled with it for years, and I've really like lately have become okay with where I'm at with my relationship with my dad and where we're at. And it's been this huge struggle that I realized like he's always been proud of me, but I wasn't, it's hard to see. But you know, it's interesting that you said at such a young age you wanted to make your parents happy, because I think we all strive to do that. Like there are our leaders and our, you know, kind of like our gods, because they do everything for us. But even though they put you in this great school, they still said, hey, you're gonna have to work for it.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
still strive to make them proud at a young age.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's interesting about that, Vikram, is that I didn't care about my teachers liking me, not liking me, thinking I was smart or not. I didn't care about my friends. What I cared about is my parents, who, you know, always wanted to see if I could, you know, get good grades and be an example to other students. And that was the approval that I always thought. It was all about my parents. And I can see the exact same thing happening with my kids now. I have 4 kids, not 10,000, but I do have a lot. It's 4 kids. And my kids do the exact same thing, and I can see it. And it's interesting because what I try to do is tell them and show them how proud I am of what they've done and who they are, regardless of their accomplishment. Like, I do not expect my kids to follow in my footsteps, although at some level I wish some of them would. They're not. They're doing their own thing.
Right.
And for them, it's so incredibly good. And I don't often do this, or I don't do this often enough. Just tell them how much I really appreciate and how much I am really proud of who they are and what they've done. Now, the problem I have, and most parents who are like me have the same problem, is that I always compare their upbringing to mine. Ooh. And that's the most unfair thing that you can ever do to kids. My kids' upbringing is very, very different than mine. And
they live a good
because
life.
I want to be my kids. They have a very good life. But you know what? For them, that's normal. That's not their fault.
That's what they know.
That's all they know. That's all they know. And so when I try to tell them about literally the stories of me walking to school 3.5 miles in snow, cold, wearing socks on my hands, because we didn't have, you know, the cool kids had gloves. We had socks. And you would triple them up in the wintertime in Cleveland. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They cannot relate to that. And so it's just interesting how
it's so far from their reality that it's so unrelatable. And it's like, well, Dad, you know, you could, like, you didn't bring us up like this. Like, you worked hard with Mom to live a life that we had. And, you know, like, that's just our life. You know, it's funny because I was looking at something and I had that same thought today. I was looking at something and I'm like, like, my reality is different than other people's realities. And then if you compare your reality to somebody who, you know, their reality is different, it's like, that's why comparison's so dangerous, because everybody's reality is just their reality. Like, you don't know any better. Like, if you grew up in the Hamptons, like, you just know the Hamptons, like you said.
That's it.
I grew up in Cleveland. I didn't know what the neighbors were like. And then I started walking 3.5 miles. I started seeing different things. And then I started traveling farther. You see different, like, even though with the internet, we still don't realize that there's so much difference out there. But that's quite interesting. So your little army. So how do you be a good dad in your little army right now?
Yeah, I think I view being a good dad in 2 ways. The first way I view being a good dad is the same way that I took cues from my dad. And that was, if there's nothing else I learned from my dad taught me through example what I call is a combination of grit and work ethic. Grit and work ethic. My dad graduated from the 8th grade and he went into the military. He lied about his age so he could get into the military after 8th grade. So he never went to high school.
Whoa.
So he does not have a high school degree.
Whoa.
But there is not a person on this planet who can outwork my dad.
Right.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what your composition is. He will get up earlier and he will go to bed later, and he will deprive himself of everything that you and I take for granted.
Yep.
Because he has this intense work ethic. And so what I try to do to be a good dad for my kids is I do show them things like work ethic, but I combine work ethic with how I treat other people.
Right.
I combine work ethic with, you know, how generous we are to other people. I combine work ethic with, you know, the fact that I take accountability for things that they know are not my accountability, but these are all examples that I try to show them through my behavior as you know, as a dad. Like this is what it means to be a dad, to be a father, to be a man. And so I try to show my kids through example versus the lecture, which, you know, I know they get sick and tired of the lecture, which I try that on and it doesn't last very long. So
it don't work.
It doesn't work. So I use the living example to show them who I am, or to show them what I believe is a differentiating factor in life. One of the other things I want to go back to that you just mentioned, Vikram, that I've been talking and teaching a lot about it, and you brought it up, so I think it's worth reemphasizing, is that a lot of times people don't realize that their reality, the things that they view as being normal, is nothing more than a set of experiences that they've had in life.
Yep.
And, you know, there's a sheet that I use to talk to people about their experiences. There are about 150 experiences that I put on this sheet, and I ask people to pick out like the top 10.
Okay.
And these experiences go from everything from, you know, I was born a man and I'm still a man. So that's an experience for me. I'm 6 feet tall, and so there's very few shelves I can't reach. That's an experience for me also. I'm also, right, I'm also Black. And so when you look at me, there are certain experiences that I have that other people will not have just based on race or ethnicity.
Yeah.
I also have experiences as having been educated. I have a Bachelor of Science and a master's degree. Those are experiences that have shaped my thoughts and ideas in the world. Right. I grew up in a family with a mother and a father who stayed together for the majority of my life. Right. That's an experience that I have. So all these experiences that I've accumulated in life, they are who I am right now. Right. And the only difference between you and I are our experiences. Right. And because of your experiences, I can learn so much more about who you are, but also about who I am. And when I do that, it allows you to also learn a little bit about me and the experiences that I've had, because quite frankly, I will never be Vikram. Right. I will never be Vikram, but right. I can learn a lot about life if I just listen to you and learn from you and gain some information or insights based on your experiences. And you've shared a lot of your experiences with me over the years, right, which I've taken to heart. You talked to me about, going through divorce. I've never gone through divorce, but that experience is very, very insightful for me. Right. You talked to me about waking up and doing things off the spur of the moment. Very few times have I had that luxury, having had 4 kids and a wife, but I learned so much about myself through your experiences. Wow. You talked to me about a lot of other things that you've done in life and experienced in life, going out to clubs late at night, being able to hang out till wee hours of the morning as an adult. I've never had that experience, but I've learned so much about myself through that. So these experiences are very powerful. And I really, really appreciate you sharing them with me, because there's so much about you and also about me that I learned from your experiences.
Oh man, this is so fascinating, because the way that you've been able to articulate it and the way that you are able to actually put a structure and a framework around it. Because I look through life and I think, wow, based on the current experiences that I'm having, I'm on a trajectory to going here, up or down or straight, right? And I didn't like the trajectory I was going. And a lot of people, you know, they call it like the midlife crisis when they start to open their eyes, they peel the onion layers back, they start to look at their friends they're hanging out with and they say, wait a minute, these people aren't necessarily happy, or these people are happy. Am I going down a path of fulfillment and contentment, or am I going down a path of resentment and anger, or, you know, dissatisfaction? And a lot of people don't ever get to that point. And I remember looking at some of my friends that I was hanging out with, and you know, people who I perceived to be successful living the life, and they weren't any happier than I was, and they were farther along their journey. And then I started to look at people who just, you know, like you, right? Like I've always looked up to you as, you know, one of the things I like that you said is you teach your boys how to be men. You also teach your girls how to treat men and how to find men, because you're a good man. You know, like you have to make choices in your life to keep on the straight and narrow, because you have family that rely on you. So you can't just go out like I used to and go to a club till, you know, 3 o'clock or whatever I was doing in the morning. And those experiences shape us. They make us who we are. And, you know, even the experience that you said, like being able to go to the top shelf, right? Like we don't think about that because we're 6 feet tall. But like my mom, who's 5'2", she's got a stool everywhere. And those are experiences. And my mom shares her experience as a, you know, Indian girl growing up back in the 60s, where she would get picked on because of her long, thick, black braided hair. And then she one day beat the hell out of the boys that were pulling on her pigtails or whatever. And the principal called up my grandpa and is like, hey, your daughter's out of control. And she said, no, he basically said, no, the experience was that she got this and that happened. But my mom remembers those experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to realize that our experiences make us, but they don't necessarily have to break us, and they can be changed by us.
Right.
We can change whatever experience we want having going forward. So if you don't like where you're at, you can change it. Or if you love where you're at, you keep doing it. But you got to have you got to have that self knowledge, or the self recognition, the looking back in life. I love your framework. That is very interesting. So do you do that with your clients, your CEOs and things like that?
Yeah. It's one of the most enlightening things that people go through, is by just jotting down all of their experiences and then explaining to people how these experiences have shaped a lot of their thoughts and beliefs.
Wow.
And I take it one step further. Your experiences also shape your feelings about things. You know, so think about it like this. I grew up, and in my family, there was a certain menu that I was served from a very young age. And so I grew an appreciation and a desire for certain types of foods. And that became almost like a set of expectations for me, as far as the foods that I would desire, like, and want.
Right.
And so when you put a different type of meal in front of me, something that I may not be familiar with or I'd never tried before, my immediate reaction was disgust. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why would you ever, like, I've never eaten a mango before. What is that thing? It looks like a peach, but the skin is a lot thicker. Like, what is that thing? I don't want that. And so my lack of experiences in this situation drove almost like a resentment. And that's a very minor situation, but the same exact things happens at a macro level for people in life. And what I mean by that is, and I'm sure that you can relate to this, Vikram, you particularly, you know, right after 9/11, that experience in this country created an incredible reaction for certain demographics in this country.
For sure.
And I guarantee you, if you were to ever try to go through the airport post 9/11 with the beard that you have right now and the way that you look right now, you would get a lot of reactions from people that you have never met before in your life that, quite frankly, would judge you and have a certain set of emotions associated with you based on their experiences. And so it's frustrating to you and to us and to a lot of people who see this happening, because what people don't understand all the time is that their feelings are 100% attached to a set of experiences that they've had, because their experiences shape their thinking, and their thinking results in a certain set of feelings. And because of those feelings, they take certain actions. And sometimes those actions are suboptimal. They're not positive. They're not things that help other human beings. They're actually things that, create disharmony in the world, disharmony with other human beings. And what they don't understand is it all goes back to a set of experiences they've had, which are creating these thoughts and ideas and emotions and set them off on a set of actions. And they feel as though they're all justified. But what they don't understand is it's not justified. That's just the result of you processing a set of experiences that you've been exposed to, which are actually things that have created this negative set of emotions inside of you. And now you're taking them out. Your actions are pointed toward another human being that are very negative. And thus, you're not creating harmony in this world. You're actually creating disharmony in this world based on your experiences and how they've left you feeling. So, accountability.
One of the things my dad talks about in his health practice is that most people want to say that this is a genetic, oh, do you have history of high blood pressure in the family? Well, sure, every family has history of high blood pressure.
Yeah.
There's 10 people. One person eats mac and cheese and fried chicken and donuts and the other doesn't exercise. The other guy is like you, is an endurance bicyclist, cycles 1,000 miles a month, and one person's healthy, one person's not. Like, of course, there's always, it's not the genetics, which is what we like to say, because then we don't have to take responsibility. It's the environment. You take two twins, you separate them at birth, they could grow, one grows up in a family where, it's strict diets, education is important, family life is important, being good to other people is important, taking care of yourself is important. And you have another one that goes to another household where it's just kind of like free for all. You get two different people, exact same DNA. And
exactly.
There's a gentleman named Tom Bialu who talks about everything in my life is my responsibility and my decision, and therefore I am controlling every decision. So if something happens to me and my family because I chose to get into a car, or if an airplane engine falls and lands on my roof and crushes my family, it's my fault because I made the decision to buy the home. I made the decision to get on the road. And it's hard for people to say, well, it was their fault. Yeah, maybe they should take responsibility for their action, but it's also, you are equally responsible for your actions. And what you said about harmony, right? Just because we grew up in certain environments doesn't give us the right to ignore how other people's environments were for them.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
compassion.
Exactly.
We
exactly.
So a lot of passion in this world right now, because we have, I think we've actually lacked compassion throughout humanity. It just shows up a lot more because now we have instant access to things that, like we can talk over Zoom now and I can see you and I feel like I'm connected to you. Whereas, 10 years ago, this wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So we have instant access to people. So, I think we just see humanity more of what it's kind of like they say, when you give a man money, he shows his true colors.
Yeah.
I think we've given humanity the opportunity to really show their colors, and people are showing them in ways where we can now all see them. And it's like, I either like it or I'm disgusted by it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is amazing how our recent situation, I'll call it COVID, has magnified who we are publicly through things like social media, how we treat one another openly, our political unrest that is still rampant in this country right now.
Crazy.
It's all been magnified. I want to go back though to something that you said briefly, but I want to emphasize it a bit more because it's so important. And I thought you said it so well in that you talked about the food that we eat and how that is a big part of, you know, our physicality, our health. And by the way, at the end of the day, I don't care how much money you have, if you don't have good health, all the money in the world is not going to do anything for you. So I am of the mindset today, even though I would not have believed this even 20 years ago, that you know, food can be three different things. You know, food can be medicine, which means it can heal your body. Right. Food can actually help your body heal itself if eaten the way and the amounts that you're supposed to.
Right.
Food can also serve as an addiction, meaning that it is something that your body craves but doesn't really need, and so it does some very negative things inside of you, like sugar. Right. I love sugar, but I have an addiction to it. I have an addiction to it.
More addictive than cocaine and heroin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love sugar, which is why I try to avoid it.
Absolutely.
The other thing that food can do, or has the ability to do, is food has the ability to create distress or sickness inside of your body.
Yep.
If the wrong food is eaten or the wrong portions of food are eaten.
Yep.
And all three of those happen on a daily basis. It's just based on your choices and what you have access to. And the reason why that's so important is because your body, what you put in your body, creates your makeup. Yeah. And when I say your makeup, I mean, if you do not feel good about your physicality, it is very difficult for you to optimize or for you to operate in an optimal way in life.
Yeah.
When you're constantly carrying an extra 15 or 20 pounds
40.
and or 40 easily, and you're going upstairs and you're breathing heavily and you're in pain and you're not sleeping a lot at night because for whatever reason you can't quite slow things down. Exactly. It all affects your being. It affects who you are. It affects how you show up in life.
Yeah.
It affects if you're positive, like you said at the top of the hour, or constantly negative.
Yeah.
It affects your performance. If you've only gotten 3 hours of sleep for the last 5 days, you're not going to think very precisely.
Yeah.
It's going to be muffled. It's going to be suboptimal. So I'm not going to get the best performance out of you.
No.
All of that goes into who you are and how you show up in life. And it's so important. And I just wanted to come back to that and emphasize it because you said it so well. What you eat literally becomes who you are.
Yeah.
And that's so true. And you being informed about that is the most important part.
You know,
and making good choices.
It's personal responsibility. Again, it comes down to personal responsibility. And it comes down to your environment. It comes down to your emotional state. It comes down to what do you value? You know, everybody says, Vikram, you eat such a strict diet. Why are you so picky? Just live a little bit. I said, I'm 39. I feel like I'm 29. Nobody compliments you on how good you look. I'm in the best shape of my life. When I tell you I'm going to go do a 100-mile bike ride, you go, oh my God, I could never do that. I said, I know, because look at what you put in your body. You are not fueled. Maybe you have the strength, but you're not fueled. Well, the other thing is if you put low nutrition into your diet, your brain is the biggest calorie burner for 90% of the world. And so when your brain is not getting the fuel it needs, I mean, this is a whole 4-day nonstop conversation. We actually talked about nutrition and diet a lot on our ride and optimizing our health. You know, Chris is an endurance cyclist, racer, awesome, just like athlete. But we talked about this when I was in Dallas riding with you. Like, one of the things that made me want to move to Miami or Dallas was the activity that I was able to do. Like, what was going to be right for my mind? Who were the people I wanted to, what was the environment, the petri dish? You know, you were a big draw to Dallas because I'm like, I know I get to plug into good people right away. I get to plug into family-oriented people, which is what I want to be around. I don't want to be around the club scene anymore and the, you know, the guys and girls that are out till 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I wake up at 4 so I can ride my bike for 2 hours in the morning before you guys are even awake, right? So the food we put in is so impactful. And unfortunately, our government and our country does not regulate food the way that we should. What people eat that they call food is actually dead calories. They are sustenance. They keep your body moving, but at a very snail-like pace. If we want to get into food, it's a whole nother chapter of the conversation, but I'm going to switch topics because I want to talk about how you went from being a corporate man and a very successful corporate human, right? You were moving up the ranks. You were in very, you know, sought after positions. People were hitting you up on LinkedIn, trying to recruit you all the time. You went to a 10-year, your last position was for 10 years. So you were, you know, well on your way to being CEO of the company if you wanted to, I'm sure. But then you decided to pivot, and you decided to pivot and start a new company, consulting companies. But I'm sure at some point you thought, well, honey, I'm gonna lose the income from this current job. But what happened? Wait, well, tell us how you went from the corporate world to where you're at now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm gonna summarize a very long conversation that I had with myself and my wife about the decision. But I had been in corporate America for 30 years. I had moved up, like you said, in the ranks all the way to the C-suite, which is where I wanted to get to. And they basically have what I call golden handcuffs when you get to that level.
Right.
You're making so much money and the benefits are so awesome that you rarely think about leaving because, you know, if you're not doing that and they're paying you a lot of money for a person who grew up on the east side of Cleveland, you know,
on your hands in the winter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money to just kind of say I want to do something different. But basically, I decided at some point that you know, life is really, really good, and I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. But the problem I had is that there weren't a lot of people who looked like me at that same level. As a matter of fact, most of the companies that I went to in the last 3 organizations that I was part of, I was the only person at that level. So I don't care if it's VP, senior VP, or chief, whatever. When I went to those companies, I was the only one. Wow. And I got sick of that. I got sick of the fact that I know I'm average at best, and I'm at this level. And so there are so many people who are missing out on opportunities who grew up in the same environment that I did. Mm-hmm. And there were so many companies that were missing out on incredible people because I knew at the end of the day, there are too many people who are so much better than me and they're not at these positions. Right. So I decided at that point, I need to make a difference. I need to do something different because I want to show this company and I also want to show the world that they're missing out on talent. Right. And so I went to my CEO and I said I was about to leave, and he gave me an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. He said, why don't you write your own job description? If you decide to stay, and we would love for you to stay, write your own job description, take the weekend and think about it. And I said, if you give me the opportunity to write my own job description, I don't need the weekend. And he said, why is that? And I said, it's because there's only one job I've wanted to do that I've never had the background for. And he goes, what is that? I said, I want to create an office of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he said, really? Why? I said, because there are too many people who look like you, who ask people who look like me why they think diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. And I want to change that.
Right.
So I don't want to just tell you that it's a good thing and the right thing to do. I want to show you, and I want to make it so powerful that you never have to ask me that question again. And I went on that journey. I started that journey about 4 years ago. And then this last year, I decided to, leave my company as chief diversity officer and start doing this across multiple organizations. And again, it was a very hard decision because, again, I was making a lot of money.
Right.
But I thought to myself, I don't want to just do this for the 3,000 people that are part of the current organization that I'm part of. Right. I want to do it for the millions of people who have never heard this story, who are still operating out of fear or ignorance.
Right.
And I want to show them how much better life can be if you're engaging a larger portion of the population. And I want to convince them that it's not only something that's right to do, but there's also a value proposition that they had never thought about. So I started doing that job or that work about a year ago now. My company asked me if they could become my first client, which I was happy they said that because it was a nice jump off point. But since time, I've done business with some major companies in this country and continues to flow in very rapidly. And I feel like I'm in a very privileged position because, like we said at the top of the hour, Vikram, I'm sitting in front of a car company that I'm about to go in and pay for my my launch of my next business, which is more tied to the things I like to do when I'm not working, which is cycling and creating a new business platform just around that.
So a lot of things unpacked right there. The corporate handcuffs, right? I mean, you get to the point, right? Like that's the dream. Like that's what your parents say. Get an education, get a good job, get married, get the white picket fence, get the little puppy, get 2 kids, and get the car, and life is good. Just you don't have to worry about anything. And you went from a position where life was great, and took on all the risk, all the challenges, right? And not only that, but you have 4 children from, like high school level, no, junior high.
Yeah.
High
no,
school,
it's high school. It's high school through college. High school through college. Yeah.
Like you're not, I mean, 4 kids on their own, even if they're all in diapers, is expensive. But when you start feeding them out of the house and they're in college and they're traveling the world and doing the things they're doing, and they play sports and you're a professional cyclist, these things start to add up. And it's like, whoa, there's a lot of, like, my monthly nuts is what some people make in a whole year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to walk away and start something because of my passion, right? Because truly the first company you started was a passion play. It actually, you stayed at your current job 4 years ago because of the passion, because you love what you were able to do there. And then you're now replicating that success in other companies, which is super awesome, because you're right. If your talent pool is your city, you're going to get a certain quality of people based on their environment. If your talent pool is the United States, you're going to get a certain quality of people based on their environment. If your talent pool becomes the entire world, you're going to get a huge talent pool because there's people that are so much better at some things and because of the environment they're raised in.
Exactly.
And now you're getting outside of a Mercedes dealership to go buy your Sprinter van to talk about what I love talking to you the most about is cycling and just mindset, because your mindset is so on point. But you've been cycling for 20-ish years?
20 years, correct.
And you're pretty hardcore. You race for, like you do hundreds of miles a week. Your goal, I think, this year is 7,000 miles. No.
Yep. It
Is
was
it
7,000 last year. We'll try to get close to 7,000 this year.
Okay. All right. I knew there was. I knew that you guys hit 7,000 last year because my buddy and I were talking, and
Yeah.
we did 3,500, and I was like, "This guy doubled our mileage. Like, how in the hell? Like, crazy."
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a picture. I remember you showed me the picture
Yeah.
where you were in the rain, and the
Oh, yeah.
Peloton, the pack is behind you, and you're just killing it. How did cycling impact your life? And when I say cycling, not just the sport, but how did the endurance and how did the discipline impact your life? Because I think whether it's cycling or running or CrossFit, right? There's got to be some physical movement that you're so dedicated to, because I do truly believe that it changes your whole lifestyle. So how did the cycling discipline, change who you are as a man and as a father and as a businessman?
Yeah. So as a great question, and I'm glad you drew the connection between the activity and what people would call a success. Because here's the thing that I didn't realize. I realize it now, but going into it, I did not realize it. That Vikram, you and I are the same from a human perspective. We are both humans, which means that both of our ancestors, like thousands of years ago, they were doing the same thing. They were hunting and gathering.
Alien, bro. I think you and I are slightly alien, a little bit alien, not 100%. But I think we're a little bit alien.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. So we were out scourging for food, and we were, we didn't have air conditioned homes. We didn't have refrigerators. We didn't have Coors Light back then. We had to, go out and, find stuff on our own. So the thing that I didn't realize, but I realize it now, is that our human capacity, our brain potential, our capacity is one such that our bodies were created for movement.
Mm-hmm.
They were not created to be sedentary.
Nope.
And the problem that most people face today is that they try to solve problems and think through complex issues by sitting down and having conversations. And one thing they don't realize is that is not normal or natural for our human bodies.
No.
Our bodies were made for movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of my best ideas and thoughts and solutions have come to me while I was on my bike.
Right.
And people would think, well, wait a minute, what are you doing on your bike solving problems? Well, that's when my thinking is actually at its best, when I am moving. It's just like our ancestors created some of the best ideas, solved some of the best problems while they were walking or traversing the ground.
Yes.
Rarely did it happen while they were sitting or huddling. We were in a position where we were always moving.
Right.
And so our human makeup is based on movement, mobility. We are not sedentary creatures. And so a lot of times people say, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to exercise. You don't have time not to.
Yeah.
Because you are so unproductive when you're not physically at your best. And so, it's funny. I remember reading a statement a long time ago that said most men spend their entire lives making money, and then they spend the last few years of their lives, spending all that money on their health, trying to preserve just another day of their health.
Yep.
And it's the truth. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Yep.
We are physical bodies.
Yep.
We are. Everything about us is physical. And as long as you've been privileged enough to have the functionality of your body, you better use it. You better use it. There are so many people who don't have that privilege, and they wish they did.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have it and you're privileged enough to have it, you've got to use it. So the first part is, man, I just want to stay active as long as I possibly can in life.
Yeah.
Secondly, and this is the business that I'm just starting. It's a business that actually, right? I didn't know what to call it, but I decided to call this new business Just Ride. And even though I'm wearing a t-shirt that says ride, which was kind of an inspiration for the business, this is more about Trek bicycles. They came out with a campaign this year about riding. And so I thought the t-shirt was cool, but the idea of Just Ride is that I'm creating a company that actually goes out and picks up cyclists, tunes up their bikes, get them all ready, takes them to a location, lets them ride for, let's say, 2-3 hours. It becomes a sag wagon, and a sag wagon for cyclists it's just the wagon that rides behind the cyclist in case something happens. They get a flat, something happens to their bike or whatever. It's always there to pick them up. It's also a place they can get food and water for a cyclist. If you run out of liquids, that's like your gasoline. So you need that constantly. And so the idea is that I want to create a business that allows people to engage in this sport in a regular way. And I'm eliminating all the variables, all the things that I've struggled with for the last 20 years as a cyclist. You know, how do I get my bike from point A to point B? I'm taking care of that. How do I make sure my bike is tuned up and ready to go at the start? I'm taking care of that.
Right.
How do I make sure I have enough fluid so when I get to my bike and I'm ready to ride, you know, the fluid doesn't stop me? I'm taking care of that.
Right.
How do I make sure that, you know, all of my equipment is charged up and ready to go the night before? I'm taking care of that. After, you know, the worst thing after a ride, you finish a 60 or 70 mile ride, and if you had to, you know, get in your car to get there, that means you got to ride back in the smelly clothes. Nope. This van is going to have a shower so that after you finish the ride, you shower the bike, you shower the person, you sit down in first class comfortable seats with your beverage of choice. You watch a nice movie on the big screen TV, and the van takes you home, puts your bike away for you, and all you have to do after that is just relax. The idea is I want to eliminate all the variables that I used to think about that stopped me from riding or made me less excited about riding. I want to get rid of all those variables, and I want the experience of riding to be the only thing that you have to worry about as a cyclist. So that's the business. It's literally going to launch in probably 2 or 3 months here in Dallas.
Wow.
And it's just one more thing that I think draws me closer to my passion and my purpose in life. And that's why I'm doing it. Period.
What is your passion and purpose?
Yeah, my passion in life, I love for you to ask that question because I literally just figured it out about 1.5 years ago. My passion and purpose in life is to literally go into relationship with other human beings, identify those things that are holding them back, remove those things, those obstacles for them so that they can experience their best potential life possible. That's what I know I was born to do. And that's what my current job is. And that's what my future job is going to be. And that's the thing that makes me whole in life, period. So thanks for asking the question.
You know, that is the funny thing is when I met you guys, which my friend had one of my friends who was a client who turned friend, she's like, oh my God, this day 9 years ago is when we first met. Like this, holy crap, thanks Facebook. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. You know, we've known each other for 9 or 10 years. And I think we've known each other for around the same amount of time now. And when I met you, that is exactly what you were doing for me. You were literally like a life coach, a business coach, mentor, motivator, you know, and which is what people don't realize. Business coaching is oftentimes a lot of life coaching because you got to remove the obstacles and then you can get to the next step. Like I can give you the strategy, but if you're not ready to leave the job, or if you're not ready to start the business or hire the person or take the leap of faith, then it doesn't matter that we created the most perfect strategy in the world because it's garbage to you. And so people don't realize the importance of having somebody who's been through so much adversity, right? The thing that I love about you, and the thing that I was hoping you would get to, which you did, is that you went through adversity. You had hardships. Even though life looks so great now, the hardships are what made you who you were. You know, the way that you respect your family, the way you respect your children. I've seen your interactions with them from when they were little munchkins, cutest little kids ever, to where they're at now. And at one point, even though we lived in the nice building in town, you guys had a small place for 4 children and 2 adults. I mean, they were bunked up and everything. And it's like, you know, mom and dad have this, we live in this super nice building, but we don't have our own bedrooms. Like that's gonna teach those children something about life that other kids won't have the experience of. And then to take your passion, which, you know, I love, because like I look at you and I'm like, ooh, one day I want to have a garage full of bikes just like this guy right here. Like, you know, I bought the PR cream today and I thought about you, and I'm like, because I'm doing this big ride on Sunday. And you know, the funny thing is yesterday, as I was at dinner with another cyclist, she and I were talking, and I'm like, I live in an apartment right now. I'm like, man, where do I go after a 100-mile day to clean my bike? Like I'm in here with microfiber towels and I'm trying to like use the cleaner spray. And I'm like, I just want, like, where do I go easily to clean my bike? Like, I wish there was a service, and we have a SAG vehicle on Sunday for this trip. Because these guys, these guys are going 200 miles. But a couple of weeks ago, I got a flat on the new bike, right? And I was like, dude, how great would it be like if there was a SAG vehicle on the mornings, like, you know, because there's a big 1,000-person community. I'm like, what if there was a SAG vehicle out here that we could just call and it just boom shows up every morning? Like that is, dude, I have some great ideas that I can share with you, which I'm sure you've already thought about. But how excited are you when you wake up now versus when you woke up 2 years ago working at the job which you were ready to finish?
Yeah. You know, here's the thing. The answer is it's 120% happier. But I want to go back to, again, something you said earlier, Vikram, because I think it's so important. A lot of times people discredit the situations that they're currently in as teaching opportunities. They discredit the discomfort as being something they just want to, you know, do without.
Right.
They discredit the journey that it takes to get to where you ultimately need to be.
Right.
And that's a mistake. Because every situation I've been in, up to and including growing up in Cleveland, sharing a bedroom with my brother, sharing socks and shoes and pants with my brother, you know, eating some days only 1 meal a day, because quite frankly, I needed money to get back and forth to school. And, you know, I had to, you know, pay the tuition at the same time. And so some days it was, you know, slim pickings. Those for me are some of the best lessons. And you talk about discipline. Here's the thing. I have never met a successful person who is not disciplined. I have never met a successful person who sleeps in. I've never met a successful person who doesn't have a coach or a mentor. I've never met a successful person who doesn't have a set of stories of failures. I've never met a successful person who has not been humbled. I've never met a successful person who was not able to talk to you about the 10 or 15 people who made them successful. I've never met a successful person who doesn't have a combination of all of these things. And these things are the things that sharpen the sword, the rough things that sharpen the sword that makes you the best person you can be. So I know people today who avoid hardships, who avoid tough times, but it's just like cycling. It's just like cycling. You will not show me a good cyclist or a great cyclist who has not climbed some incredible hills. And for cycling, as you know, the hardest thing you can ever do is climb a long, steep hill. But that's the thing that makes you incredible. I know a lot of guys who will go 10 miles around a hill so they don't have to climb it.
Wow.
And I just laugh at them, because it's like, wait a minute, you're avoiding the thing that's going to make you better.
Right.
Because you don't want that pain, that agony, that stress. Guess what? I only get better because of the pain, the agony, and the stress. So don't go around it, go through it. Go through it, own it. Because that's the thing. That's the thing that's going to make you or optimize who you are. I would not be sitting here right now in front of a Mercedes dealership about to pay cash for a very expensive van. If I hadn't gone through the number of hardships that I've gone through,
Yes.
it has made me resilient. It has made me disciplined, and it has also made me confident.
Yes.
And when I say confident, it means that I worry less about tomorrow. I worry less about tomorrow because I have too many yesterdays that have been successful. So I worry less about tomorrow. Stress comes from worrying about what's tomorrow going to look like? What's the outcome going to be? Am I going to be okay? I don't worry about tomorrow. I've got enough yesterdays that have already proven this formula works. So I keep applying it.
You know what's so cool about attacking the hill? That's so cool about attacking the hill. And I learned the phrase attack the hill really when I did the project, which I had to do twice because the first time I rang the bell and I quit. And when you have the adversity of quitting and then you have to sit with yourself for so long, and most people, when they've gone through a really hard challenge and they quit, they don't come back. They don't go back. Why would you? I mean, hey, I tried, I failed. I'm not going to go back. It is what it is. And you justify it with all sorts of bullshit excuses, right? You justify with all these nonsensical excuses. And at the end of the day, when you do the hills, right? When you attack the hills, you get to ride down, because some of the best rides, I tell you, I know, because we had that epic downhill coming down the dam with the water like flowing. I mean, I thought,
absolutely.
Oh my God, and there's people everywhere, but you're just going like 40 miles an hour. And then you got the wind in your back, just giving you that extra boost. Like if you don't get to the top, you never, like when you get to the top, you appreciate the view. You're like, wow, this is awesome. You're like, all right, let's go back down, guys. Let's, there's always another mountain. You appreciate the view, but you appreciate who you became.
Yeah.
Right? When you attack the hill over and over and over, and you accomplish it, and you just train your brain, you train your mindset, you train your physiology that when something hard comes at me, I'm going to get through it. I might have to walk, I might have to crawl, but I am not giving up. I am not giving up. I am not calling Uber to pick me up. I will figure it out. Like I will throw up, I will bleed, I will sweat, I will drink toilet water if I have to, but I am not giving up. And like that's why physical motion is so important, because when you build that into your psyche, which is what you've done for 20 years, you're in like, when people see you, you're in, better shape than people in their high school prime, college prime, right? And that discipline, that every day I'm doing this, every day you have something to look forward to, and every day you're going to push yourself hard. It's a drug. It's a craving. Like I hate that right now, like because of COVID, I hate that like I had to make a decision to only ride 3 to 4 days a week. And even those rides are not what I want them to be, but I know that that's what's best for where I'm at currently. But I crave the hard, and it's what men crave. The testosterone in men's body wants to be unleashed. And when we unleash it in healthy ways, we then can come home and be better men and better fathers and better friends and brothers and children, sons, right? We need that. There's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He talks about the quantum field and all this like theories about meditation, and he's super powerful, and how thoughts can hurt us, but thoughts can heal us. If anything can hurt you, the opposite of it can heal you. So if bad food can hurt you, good food can heal you. If bad thoughts can hurt you, then good thoughts can heal you. And he talks about, I was with a friend, and she shared a walking meditation. We were running in the park, and she was listening to this, and I'm like, what was that? She's like, that's the walking meditation. And he talks about how when you walk and you think, it just changes everything, and how much more powerful you are, and your best ideas come when you're moving. It actually, the right and the left brain don't connect unless you're moving.
Right.
Artists, right? You got to move. So,
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah.
I know you got to go pick up your van, and I can't wait till you send me the picture of it. We actually saw it moving a second ago. Where do people find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me, and please do connect in with me. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you go to Chris Moreland, you'll see me on LinkedIn. I'm the good-looking, tall, dark guy, and I would love to connect with you, share more stories, or if there's anything that I can do to help you out, I'd be more than happy to do that as well.
And you guys, you want to connect with Chris. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's fun. He's funny. Get him off of the camera, and the jokes that we have are just, I mean, that's what it's about. Like the connection that you can make with people so instantly is really remarkable. Like it's a gift for sure. The way that you are able to, there's certain people that when they walk into the room, everybody stops and is like, who just walked? That's you. Your wife's even better. Your wife's even better. Talk about good looking, but you guys are blessed. You guys are so powerful, and I hope you guys take the opportunity to reach out to Chris. Chris, I like to ask this question. What do you want to be remembered for in life?
I want to be remembered for one thing, and it's interesting you asked that question because I asked myself that same exact question. I want to be remembered for making the lives that I was able to touch better.
Nice.
Period.
Nice.
That's what I want to be remembered for.
I love it, man. Hey, I love you so much, brother, and I can't wait to
same here, man.
Miami. Send me a picture of the van, and we will. Dude, I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the time also, Vikram. Keep doing what you're doing, man. You're inspiring a whole lot of people, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Be well.